Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Napoleon, and today we're back with another Enlisted episode regarding the Enlisted tech tree, and today we're going to be doing Tier 2 Germany. Of course, if you haven't seen my Tier 1 Germany, I highly suggest that you watch it. That said, this video has been made possible for the friends at Discord, meaning if you haven't subscribed, or joined Discord, I highly suggest you do. But that said, let's get started with Tier 2 Germany. Starting with the rifles, we have the pre-Car 98K, literally it is what it says, a pre-Car 98K, and then after that we have the Carcano M1891. Of course, the Carcano in this image is practically the Italian World War I bolt-action rifle with a 6-round clip. Moving on, we have the MAS 36. This is actually a French rifle in the German army because the Germans used it after the capitulation of France. After that, we have the Mannliche 1895, another World War I rifle with 5 rounds, used by the Austrians. Moving on, we have one of the more interesting rifles of this list. We have the VG-15. This is a semi-automatic rifle developed in 1944 for the Volksturm, or the People's Army, with a 30-round STG-44 magazine. This essentially was the Volksturm version of the STG-44, except for the fact that it does not fire fully automatic, and it only requires semi-automatic, which is interesting. And finally, we have probably the best gun for Germany and all of the tiers right here, and that is the Armaguerra Model 39. This gun is essentially an Italian semi-automatic 6-round magazine weapon. It only features in semi-auto, but the good thing is that every shot can essentially down and kill a person. So, essentially a very good weapon, and in my opinion, one of the best weapons at its tier for Tier 2. Moving on to snipers, we have the pre-Car 98K scope with a mount. Honestly, I'd rather just get the Carcano Mod 38 7.35 sniper or the Car 98K sniper. Next up, we have the grenade launcher with the Car 98K. Personally, I suggest that you highly use this because grenade launchers are very overpowered at this tier. So that's that. And then after that, let's move on to the assaulters. In terms of the assaulters, we have the MP3008. Personally, this is just a British Sten modification for the German MP40, and it's not that great in-game or in real life, but it does have a 32-round magazine. After that, we have two weapons of almost the exact same. These are the Breda M1918 and OVP M1918. The OVP essentially was from the Villa Porosa, and essentially what happened to that was that the Villa Porosa literally got chopped in half, and you literally get the OVP. Now, the Breda M1918 was a better version of the OVP, and in-game, it is definitely the better version, having less recoil and less horizontal recoil. And after that, we have the FNAP 43, which is essentially an even worse version of the MP3008, with less rate of fire, and most importantly, even less hit power. However, it does have the benefit of having a 40-round magazine, so that's great. Overall, in terms of Germany for Tier 2 assault rifles or SMGs, I highly suggest that you just stick with either the Tier 1 SMG, which is the MP34, which just has 450 rate of fire per minute and a 32-round magazine, or if you are really desperate, you can use the Breda M1918, which is a pretty good gun in my opinion. It just really depends on how you use the weapon, because a lot of people don't like the weapon because of its sights. I personally got used to it, so I can use it, but it really depends on what you have. Moving on, we have the assault weapons, and these are mostly pretty good, decent assault weapons for its tier. Starting up, we have the Breda Mod 30. This is an Italian submachine gun used in World War II. By its introduction in World War II, it was already slightly outdated, and its 20-round magazine historically caused a lot of problems. Thankfully, in Enlisted, it doesn't cause that many problems. But move on to one of the best machine guns of the tier, which is the 25-round MG13. This is essentially the German early version of the assault rifle. It's very good, actually, and it's surprisingly able to clear and kill a lot of people really quickly. So that's that. That said, in my opinion, the MGs are really good for this tier. Not so much the Breda Mod 30, but the MG13. It is really stands out among its peers. That said, let's move on to the heavy weapons, which has a good mix of anti-tank weapons and vehicles themselves. Starting up with the Sturm pistol, this is essentially a German anti-tank weapon that literally is a pistol that can fire an anti-tank grenade against vehicles. Do I suggest that you use it? Yes, because it's pretty good against taking out tanks, especially the lighter tanks. Moving on, we have the GRB-39. This is an anti-tank rifle that fires heat grenades, and it's pretty good. In my opinion, it's good, but I rather get the Sturm pistol because the Sturm pistol you can essentially move quicker with it, and most importantly, the Sturm pistol allows you to run, whereas the GRB-39 doesn't really allow you to do that. So that's that. Next up, we have the R75. This is essentially a German motorcycle used in World War II. It has a pretty good speed and it does have a machine gun. Now the question is, do I suggest that you use it? The answer is no, because after that you have the SDKFZ7. This is essentially a German half-track that allows you to carry at most a crew of 15. Of course, you already have a squad with this, which you can bring to the field, and you can use this as a mobile spawn point, which is really good, and is one of the most recent additions to the game. So which one do I suggest that you use? I personally highly suggest that you use the SDK FC7 because that one is just so much better than a motorcycle. That said, let's move on to the tanks. Starting up, we have the SDK-FC 2342. This is essentially the Puma. This has a 4-man crew, a 50mm gun, and a very good top speed. Do I suggest that you use it? No, because you have much better alternatives. After that, we have the Panzer III J1. This is essentially the exact same Panzer III J that you get in Tier 1, so I highly suggest that you don't use it. And after that, we have the Panzer IV-E, a 75mm cannon mounted on a Panzer IV. Do I suggest that you use it? Maybe. Because although it is a good tank, it is not good as the next one that we have. And the next one that I'm talking about is the Panzer IIIN. The reason why these two tanks are so similar and so different is that the Panzer IIIN is essentially a Panzer III with a 75mm gun. The Panzer IV with a 75mm gun, although it has better armor, the Panzer III on the other hand is practically the exact same vehicle with the exact same stats, just with less ammunition. Personally, you will not even use that many ammunition, and a good addition is that it has a machine gun in the commander's seat, meaning that if you want to pop out and mow down enemies, you can practically do that. And finally, the last addition is the Panzer IV F1. Honestly, you'd rather stand a better time getting the Panzer IIIN because that thing is just so amazing. Personally, will not suggest that you get the Panzer IV F1 because that thing is practically the exact same thing. I just highly suggest that you get the Panzer IIIN because that thing is also faster, so that's a benefit. That said, let's move on to the planes. Starting up, we have the Ju-87, the Stuka series, we have the B2, the D3, and the D5. Honestly, the only thing setting them apart is practically their speed. Everything else is pretty decently similar. You have machine guns, 20mm cannons, and 20mm cannons. For one, the Ju-87D3 has more bombs, to be exact, 3 250kg bombs, so that's going to be interesting. But the other planes only have one bomb. So if you want to get one Stuka, get the D3. After that, we have the BF-109 series. These are the BF-109 F1 and the F2. Essentially, these are the improved versions of the BF-109 E7U2 that we have in Tier 1. Do I suggest that you use it? Not really. You have a much better alternative in both the Stukas and the IAR-81C. That said, let's move on to the Ju-87R2. The difference that set this Ju-87 apart from the rest of the Ju-87s, Stukas, is that this is the Africa Corps version, and, most importantly, it has a 500kg bomb. This bomb can practically destroy everything that you have in the game as of right now. So, good luck. This thing will practically kill anything, even if it doesn't land directly on target. That said, let's move on to the last two planes. These are the Focke-Wulf 190A1 and the C202EC. Honestly, I highly suggest that you do not get these, because not only do they have no bombs, but their armament itself is quite lacking. That said, to recap, you literally have a better chance of using the Tier 1 IAR-81C than any of the planes right here, except for maybe, quite literally, the Ju-87D3 or the Ju-87R2. Both of them have insane bomb loads, and you just literally stand a better chance. That said, highly suggest that you still use the IAR-81C because that thing can do a lot of things very well. It can fight planes, it can kill tanks, it can just do a lot of things really well. That said, that is my personal opinion for the planes. Finally, let's move on to the lineups. For one, you already have 3 slots of infantry, of which I highly suggest that you use the Assaulter Squad that you get with the Beretta M1918 because that thing is really good. because it's better than a medic squad. You can also bring a medic squad for another slot, but I also suggest that you get a machine gun squad. And you can either bring a machine gun squad or a radio operator squad. In my those two squads are a must. And finally, my other suggestion for your vehicle slot, or one of your vehicle slots, is the half track, the SDKFC-7. This is essentially a very good spawn point, rally point, and it allows you to carry a lot of troops. So that's going to be very good. In terms of the tanks or planes, Germany really benefits, unlike Tier 1. You can either get the Panzer IIIN, which is pretty good, or you can also get planes. Honestly, you stand a better chance of getting the IAR-81C than any of the planes here. And in terms of my personal opinion, I personally just get the Panzer IIIN, because that is a very good plane in itself. Finally, let's move on to the riflemen. As of this tier 2, you have some of the best riflemen with the Armaguerra. The Armaguerra Model 39 is a very good weapon. That said, to recap, in terms of lineups, I suggest that you get an assault squad, a radio operator, or a machine gunner squad, a half-track squad, and a tank or a plane squad. That said, let's move on to the weapons for said squads. In terms of the rifleman, engineer, radio operator, etc., I highly suggest that you use the Armaguerra Model 39 because that thing is amazing at tier 2. And if you can also bring them the grenade launcher. In terms of assault weapons, it is highly mixed because you can also use the MP34 from tier 1 and you have no problem. I personally would like to use the Brita M1918 because that's just a personal favorite because it's just interesting. But if you guys don't like that weapon, you can also use the MP34. There is practically not a lot of things you can do at tier 2 in terms of assault weapons. In my opinion, the MP3008 is practically the exact same or similar to the MP34, so there's not a really big point of getting the MP3008 when you have the MP34. That said, in terms of machine guns, I highly suggest that you guys get the MG13 because that's just really good. Anti-tank weapons, the Sturm pistol, and in terms of the vehicles, of course, get the SDK FC7. And in terms of tanks, you already have my opinion. Get the Panzer IIIN, and the planes, I highly suggest that you get the Ju-87D3 or the R2, or if you really want to be a jack of all trades, get the IAR-81C. That said, let's move on to the perks. In terms of the perks, I highly suggest that you get 35% vitality because that thing is amazing. Also highly suggest that you get 75% medipack usage speed because that is also amazing. And in terms of weapons, I highly also suggest that you get minus 40% firearm vertical recoil, which is also going to be extremely helpful. That said, let's move on to what we can get for perks in terms of tanks. In terms of the tanker, I suggest that you change the shell of ammunition without losing reload progress perk for the loader, or that you can get the plus 20% tank gun reload speed loader perk. So that's going to be that. In terms of planes, really can't suggest that you do anything besides minus 60% damage while hard landing with a parachute, because that thing is just so useful at sometimes. Finally, let's move on to the suggestions. At tier 2, I highly suggest that you just stay at tier 2. What I mean by that is that tier 3 has the unfortunate downside of going up tiers or going down tiers, which at this point, most tier 2 players just stay at tier 2. My personal suggestion is that you max out tier 2, because tier 2 is a lot of good things. You really get to start using the heavier weapons of the German army, including the half-track, which you will use, I swear, to the late game. That thing is so useful at the late game, you can't even understand why. The Sturm pistol is pretty good, the MG13 is pretty good, the German assault rifles are pretty lacking, but it makes up for it in terms of the machine guns, and the Armaguerra Mod 39, and in terms of the planes, personally I would just go for the IAR-81C. That thing is just truly amazing. But, that said, this is all it for Tier 2 Germany. Next video, we're going to be doing Tier 3 Germany. That's it, guys. Have a great day. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the Discord. And I'll see you in the next one.